The conversation surrounding Islam and religious freedom is often clouded by widespread and persistent misconceptions. A common, yet fundamentally mistaken claim is that Islam is a faith spread by the sword, one that compels adherence through force. This narrative stands in stark opposition to the religion's foundational texts. The starting point must be the Quran, Islam's most sacred scripture. Within its chapters lies a clear and unequivocal statement: there is no compulsion in religion. Quran 2:256. This is not a footnote, it is a core, definitive declaration. The meaning is straightforward: genuine faith cannot be coerced. Belief is an internal conviction, a personal, private choice. Context strengthens its universal application. Early scholars say it was revealed in Medina about locals with children raised Jewish before Islam. When parents converted, some sought to force their now adult children to follow. The verse forbade compelling them, a direct response to familial pressure. This shows the prohibition was practical, governing real-life interactions between faiths. It underscores belief must be sincere, not capitulation to pressure. Any analysis of Islam and freedom must begin with this command. Ignoring it or claiming it is abrogated disregards the position of most scholars. Classical and contemporary scholars uphold it as fundamental and unchanging. The point is simple. Faith is personal. Forcing it is ineffective and forbidden. Beyond the foundational prohibition of forced conversion, the Quran actively promotes a methodology of outreach that is rooted in persuasion, wisdom, and respect. The divine instruction is not to compel, but to invite, and the nature of this invitation is detailed with remarkable clarity. Invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom, good instruction, and argue with them in a way that is best. Wisdom implies using reason, evidence, and an understanding of the audience. This verse rules out aggressive or coercive proselytism, championing an intellectual and humane method. The scripture acknowledges different beliefs and paths, and commands believers to recognize this reality with grace. If your Lord had willed, he could have made mankind one community. The prophet's duty was to convey. Acceptance or rejection rests with each individual. The life and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, the Sunnah, are a practical demonstration of the Quran's principles. His method was persuasion, diplomacy, and leading by example. Force was never his tool for winning hearts and minds. A landmark treaty recognized Jews, pagans, and Muslims as one polity with protected religion. To the Jews their religion, and to the Muslims their religion. He received a Christian delegation from Najran, debated respectfully, and allowed them to pray in his mosque. Their lives, property, and religious offices were guaranteed. No bishop removed, no monk from his monastery, no priest from his priesthood. Hudaybiyah's terms showed willingness to let people leave rather than hold them by force. The authentic record makes clear. The ban on compulsion was not theory, it was lived practice. Sound understanding rests on rigorous methodology. La ikraha fil din is recognized as a decisive, overarching principle. Scholars prioritize clear texts, then interpret specifics within that framework. Linguistic precision defines scope and legal weight. Context prevents misapplication of verses tied to battles or treaties. Authenticated reports carry weight. Weak reports do not overturn clear Quran. The consensus: no compulsion governs relations with non-Muslims. General rules hold. Specific rulings are conditional and contextual. Result: the principle stands indisputable, guiding interpretation of related texts. Critics cite verses or hadith that seem to contradict this rule. They highlight fighting or penalties and infer coercion. Scholars have addressed these for centuries with method. Fighting verses relate to self-defense under existential attack and broken treaties. The Quran itself qualifies conduct by justice and limits. Apostasy rulings in pre-modern polities address treasonous rebellion, not private doubt. Penalties targeted sedition in specific contexts. Thus, the general rule remains the default and permanent principle. He never executed anyone simply for leaving Islam. Cited executions involved violent crimes or armed revolt. A fair reading sees freedom of conscience as dominant. Penalties pertain to political crimes. A comparative historical lens, forced piety and other traditions. To assess fairly, place cases in broader context. Where state and church fused, coercion often followed. State churches mandated adherence by law. Dissenters faced special taxes, exclusion from office, confiscation, expulsion, even death. During the Reconquista and Inquisition, people were forced to convert, emigrate, or be executed. Thousands were forcibly baptized and then policed. Charlemagne compelled conversion on penalty of death. This is not blame shifting. It shows a human failing when power enforces conscience. Acknowledging the wider pattern allows honest engagement with religious freedom across traditions. The Islamic counter-narrative, documented tolerance and pluralism. Major Islamic empires protected non-Muslim communities under law. Christians and Jews received protection for life, property, and worship. Churches and synagogues often thrived under Muslim rule. They governed internal affairs with their own courts. Jizya exchanged for protection and exemption from military service, often less than zakat. Umar returned jizya when protection could not be provided. Principle over revenue. Non-Muslim physicians, scientists, philosophers, and administrators contributed centrally. Ancient Christian communities survived 1,400 plus years under Muslim rule. Had Islam practiced systematic forced conversion, these communities would not endure. Their perseverance refutes the sword narrative. Separate core texts from political actions done in their name. Misdeeds of followers do not invalidate explicit principles. Dawah is peaceful invitation, wisdom, good instruction, best manner, never coercion. Use reliable sources and rigorous scholarly method. There is no compulsion in religion. Quran 2:256. Prophetic treaties guaranteed religious freedom. Scholars uphold freedom of conscience as the governing rule. Islam calls for exemplary character, gentle words, and respect for conscience, not the sword. The call of Islam is an invitation that seeks hearts through peace and persuasion, honoring each person's freedom to choose.